good morning and welcome. It's another beautiful day here in Western North Carolina. We're so fortunate to live in such a beautiful place. And we thank everybody for coming out today, taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us, to learn about air quality and some of the solutions that are being put in place. I'm Bill Aker with the Land to Sky Regional Council. I serve as the coordinator of the Regional Clean Air Campaign and also the Clean Vehicles Coalition. And today we're kicking off the ozone pollution forecasting season with this workshop and press conference. As you all know, state-issued air quality forecasts for ground-level ozone pollution will begin this weekend. And these forecasts can be accessed by logging on to the state's air awareness website or get those through media outlets as well. And Paul Muller with the State Division of Air Quality will be telling us a little bit more about those forecasts and how they're determined in his presentation today. As you all know, air quality has been an issue in our region for several decades. Air pollution can impact our health, our economy, and our environment. So we must take proactive measures to minimize these impacts. As you all know, the region is growing fast, and this growth is resulting in more cars and trucks on the roads, more homes and buildings to heat, and not to mention all the lawnmowers and weed eaters and blowers as well. To keep up with all this growth, we must take action to reduce our energy consumption, find cleaner energy sources, and reduce emissions from our vehicles and equipment. The good news is that action is being taken by many different groups in the region to address these problems. And I just wanted to go over a few examples of what's being done. Several years back, the North Carolina legislature passed some landmark environmental legislation known as the North Carolina Clean Smokestacks Act. And implementation of that act has resulted in very significant emission reductions from the coal-fired power plants here in North Carolina. And our local Progress Energy Plan here in Asheville has already reduced its emissions significantly and is one of the cleanest power plants in the state. We also expect emission reductions in other neighboring states through various state and federal actions, and we will hear more about that today, especially from John Myers of TVA. The state of North Carolina established a green power program several years ago and also a renewable energy portfolio standard, and these are increasing the use of renewable and cleaner energy sources. And you've seen all of the solar power systems that have been springing up across the region, including the huge solar array on the Biltmore estate. So we're really excited about the growth of the solar industry here in Western North Carolina. We also have cleaner diesel engines and cleaner diesel fuel that's lowering emissions from our diesel vehicles. And local action is also being taken. The Western North Carolina Air Quality Agency several years back received some grants and retrofitted school buses in all 5 of the school systems in our area. They retrofitted those with diesel oxidation catalyst to reduce particulate matter. And this is especially going to benefit the health of our students, especially those riding the buses. The school systems also implemented some anti-idling policies, and that's helping as well. And there are many efforts to get our citizens to strive not to drive or drive more efficiently. And Strive Not to Drive events will be coming up in May. The City of Asheville and the North Carolina Department of Transportation are coordinating a regional rideshare program to reduce vehicle emissions and to save fuel. The DOT constructed additional park and ride facilities in the region recently. And they're getting a lot of use. I've been following the use of the new park and ride facility on I-40 at the Newfound exit in Haywood County. And when it first opened, just a couple of cars were using it. And the other day, I passed by, and there must have been 20 cars there. I don't think there was an empty space available. So with the price of gas, people are taking advantage of those park and ride lots, and we hope to expand those in the near future. City of Asheville also launched a van pool program and a 4-day, 10-hour work week several years ago to reduce energy consumption, emissions, and their carbon footprint. We've also got businesses, schools, and local governments taking action to reduce their energy consumption through the use of green building designs, energy conservation measures, renewable energy projects, and greener fleets. And the good news is that these projects are creating and retaining jobs in our region, which is very important today. The Land to Sky Regional Council, Advantage West, and many other partners are working together to grow our local green or clean energy economy and to create more jobs while reducing emissions. And to learn more about our Evolve Energy Partnership project, you can pick up one of the brochures outside on the table, or you can see Patrick Harper here at the council who's coordinating that effort. A lot of good work is underway, but a lot more needs to be done, and we need every citizen and organization doing their part. And so at this time, I would like to do introductions. I'd like to start with our event sponsors today and recognize the folks with those organizations. With the Western North Carolina Air Quality Agency, Ashley Featherstone, Vic Farr are here. Okay. And James Rayford, excuse me. With the North Carolina Division of Air Quality, Paul Muller and Keith Bamberger. With the Land to Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition, our fleet consultant, Chris Dobbins, and Brian Taylor, who's managing our electric vehicles program. And Progress Energy, Gary Wisnett and Lori Moorhead. Thanks for being here. We appreciate Progress Energy's support of our efforts over the years. I also especially want to thank Buncombe County Government TV for taping the event today. They've been real good about doing that every year for us and helping to spread the message. Just wanted to mention there will be some additional media coverage beyond the work of the folks that are here today. I understand that Waynesville Mountaineer will be taking information from us and doing an article. Clear Channel Radio and the Asheville Radio Group both will be doing stories as well. Several of our speakers will be leaving here to tape a 30-minute program over at Clear Channel. They'll be airing this weekend. All right, so I'd like to just go through the audience and anyone else. If you would introduce yourself, starting with Luba.
Sure, I'm Luba Zuma, transportation planner here at Land to Sky, working with the French Brothers and NPO.
Okay.
I'm Jojo Jackson. I'm with the Mountain Express Newport here.
I'm Brendan Davey, North Carolina Division of Air Quality.
Matt.
Matt Johnson with Bi-Wheels RTS. We built that bright field out in the parking lot.
Okay. And Matt, you can tell people all about it at the end of the event today?
I will.
Okay, great. Melanie?
Melanie Petrola with the U.S. Forest Service, Air Quality Specialist.
And I'm Bill Jackson, I'm Air Quality Specialist also with the U.S. Forest.
Okay. Reed?
Reed Conway with the North Carolina Energy Office.
Ron Townland with Land to Sky Regional Council. Clark Morrison, Citizen Times.
Okay, thanks, Morris. Yes. Vic? Let's see, we've introduced you. John will introduce.
John Myers, Tennessee Valley Authority.
Jerry Ballou with Mountain Mobility and Land to Sky Regional Council.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody coming out today. I want to take just a few minutes to talk about a couple of air quality programs here at Land to Sky. We established the Regional Clean Air Campaign 13 years ago to increase public awareness and action on air quality. And our campaign partners are working together to encourage energy efficiency and reduced or cleaner driving through all our various campaign messages. And the good news is we've seen a real increase in awareness and action as a result of all that work. Thanks to the hard work of all of our outreach partners and especially the help of the media, which has been very helpful. We also launched the Land to Sky Clean Cities project about 7 years ago to promote the use of alternative fueled vehicles and advanced technology vehicles. And we're seeking Clean Cities designation from the U.S. Department of Energy for a 5-county area around Asheville, and we expect to achieve that special designation later this year. We're really pleased with all of the interest in alternative fuels and cleaner vehicles. I've got a few examples. The city of Asheville has been a real leader in this area in the use of alt fuels. The city began using compressed natural gas vehicles several years ago, and Chris Dobbins, who's here, when he was with the city, opened the region's first publicly accessible CNG fueling station in downtown Asheville. We've got a second public access CNG station down in Arden on Hendersonville Road, and Henderson County recently opened the third public access station in Hendersonville to fuel the city and the county's growing fleet of CNG vehicles. Mission Hospital has bought a fleet of CNG-powered and electric vehicles, showing their commitment to cleaner air and improved health here in Western North Carolina. AT&T deployed 16 CNG vehicles a couple years ago in their Asheville fleet. Alltech Eco Energy is converting vehicles to natural gas right here in Buncombe County, and they've received EPA certification to convert several Ford vehicles, including the Transit Connect and several Ford pickups and vans. We've been working very closely with them, and we're fortunate to have them right here in our backyard. Blossman Gas and Alliance Auto Gas are working to convert several fleets to propane fuel. Mountain Mobility, Buncombe County's community transportation system, partnered with these organizations to convert 10 shuttle vans to propane, significantly reducing their emissions and their fuel costs. And Mountain Mobility also purchased 12 CNG shuttle buses last year. So they've been a real leader. Many entities are using domestically produced biodiesel that's helping to reduce a particulate matter and other harmful emissions. And some of the entities using biodiesel include the Metropolitan Sewage District, City of Asheville, Buncombe County, UNC Asheville, Warren Wilson College, Progress Energy, Henderson County, Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and many others. And we're also fortunate to have Blue Ridge Biofuels of Asheville, which is producing biodiesel, and they've been opening public biodiesel pumps across western North Carolina. Right now we've got about 10 biodiesel stations in the region. City of Asheville, Black Mountain, Montreat, AB Tech, Haywood Community College, and several others are using low-speed electric vehicles. And Buncombe County and many other entities are using gas-electric hybrids to save on fuel and to cut their emissions. And Blue Ridge Community College has recently launched a new alternative fuel vehicle training program to train mechanics and also first responders. All these entities are working together through our Regional Clean Vehicles Coalition, and we encourage anyone that's interested to join our coalition, get involved. Our most recent program is our Plug-in Electric Vehicle Readiness Initiative to get communities ready for the rollout of the new high-speed electric vehicles like the Nissan Leaf and the Chevy Volt. And we're getting communities ready by helping them to put in electric vehicle charging systems. Last year, we partnered with Advanced Energy in Raleigh to secure some state grant funds that helped some of our stakeholders install 13 electric vehicle charging stations in the region just this past December. And BioWheels RTS used some Green Business Fund support to construct solar integrated charging stations at 4 locations so that we can all drive on sunshine. And Matt Johnson will tell us a little bit more about those later. We're also very pleased to have the Eaton Corporation right here in Arden that's manufacturing these electric vehicle charging stations and creating clean energy jobs. Over the next year, our Electric Vehicles Committee will use some Department of Energy support to develop a regional and a statewide plan for deploying more of these plug-in vehicles and charging stations, and Brian will be leading that project. There's several grant opportunities out there to help you green your fleet, including the Department of Energy, EPA, State Division of Air Quality, the State Energy Office, and others. And we can help you secure those funds for those projects, so we encourage you to give us a call and get involved in our coalition. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming out today. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce John Myers. John is the Director of Environmental Policy and Performance with the Tennessee Valley Authority, and John's going to tell us about TVA's emission reduction program. John, thanks so much for coming over from Tennessee and being with us today. We had you over here about 6 years ago, so it was time to get an update.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Bill, thank you. Certainly pleasure being up here with you today. It's always a pleasure to get up into the Asheville region in western North Carolina, where we've had some great debates and some good progress, and there is certainly a feel about this meeting and the laundry list of things that Bill was talking about, all the great things you've got going that, and really seeing up here on some charts of good trends in air quality. So let me just kind of move through a couple of slides. I'll kind of just get in a little bit about TVA. In 2010, our board of directors set out a vision to be one of the nation's leading providers in low-cost, cleaner energy by 2020, and we've put that in really 3 main buckets. Low rates, because that spurs economic development to make the types of investments for greener, to get the kind of investments we need for continued progress, make sure that that power is delivered with high reliability and that power is delivered responsibly. We did break that down also in cleaner areas, one of the major vision focus parts of our program. And then as we look at adding supply, we focus some more on nuclear on the supply side and greater efficiency on the demand side management. So that's the little bit of the context of the vision. As we talk about the Ozone Kickoff meeting, one of the things that, and I think Paul's going to get into it a little bit with the new ozone standard that's being implemented, a new 75 part per billion standard, more restrictive standard, and as we look to get more, a more stringent standard for fine particulates, portions of the country will be labeled non-attainment, and that will mean that more Americans will be living in areas where the air is deemed not to meet the standards, and that can get the perception that air quality is not improving, that air quality we've got, but to the contrary, air quality has improved. The yardsticks by which we judge clean air improvements are certainly getting more stringent, but the trends in air quality are there, and we can talk about that. I thought we'd show a little bit, and I know this is the Ozone Kickoff, but I was going to show a few slides on particulate matter. And if you'll look up in the upper left, upper right, these data that are here are from kind of this area. It's the air quality monitors that are in the region that's shown up here. You can see our power plant's kind of the centroid of that thing. Western North Carolina kind of on the eastern band. But you can see with annual PM10 standard, that's the standard. And certainly air quality has been half of that for a long time and shows improving trends with a slight uptick. PM-2.5 or fine particle standards, which really drives a lot of the SO2 emission strategies for utilities. You can see with a 15 standard, regionally we are over it back in the late 90s. Regionally we come down, but we are looking that a new standard is being proposed out here that will continue to challenge the region. Sulfur dioxide, this is ambient levels of sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere, and certainly all the trends we see are coming down, whether you do it by a 1 hour standard, a 24-hour standard, or an annual concentration. And then with regard kind of point source, just up in the mountains, the Great Smoky Mountains up in the Clingman-Dones region, have noted that total cloud water sulfur has decreased by 86% since, so we're seeing improvements certainly in ambient levels of sulfur dioxide. Now, back to ozone, and we're going to get out of the technical slides in a while, I'll show some other stuff, but you can see this really is a great progress. You can see the downward trend. Certainly from year to year, we can have some meteorology that changes those concentrations, but overall, the trends are certainly coming down. You can see the 97 standard at 84 parts per billion. We are now implementing a 2008 standard that's at 75 parts per billion. And you can see that regionally we're doing much better, but a new standard is coming. And we'll see what that range is. And that will certainly have to drive, keep us doing a lot of the things that we're doing. And that really goes back to what Bill's introductory speech was, and it was great to note all the different things that were going on, whether it was electric vehicles, whether it was looking at industrial sources, utility sources. It really looks at all those things for continued air quality improvements. And certainly as we, from TVA's standpoint, we are trying to engage multiply in that to make sure that all source sectors reduce. I'll get into more about some of our power plant emissions, but we too are looking at electric vehicles. It was great. Enjoying some of the fruits of your labors. I drove a Chevy Volt up here from Chattanooga, made it from Chattanooga to Asheville on 3 gallons of gasoline. It's out being charged right now as we talk by a little bit of sunshine, beautiful western North Carolina sunshine this morning. So I'm glad that's working. And then we're working with area and industrial sources on greater energy efficiencies, trying to improve their ability to provide products with less energy use. So it takes a village to keep clean air moving forward. But back to utility sources and what's coming in and driving actions around our sources. I'm going to go a little bit through some of the rules that are shaping that, and then how that wove into the fabric of what TVA is up to and where we're headed. I put three major sources of rules that, coming out of EPA that continue to keep utilities focused on greater environmental improvement. One is the cross-state air pollution rule. This was the rule to replace the Clean Air Interstate rule. It limits NOx and SOx in one state from being able to go over and cause a problem in another state. That rule was set to be implemented in January of 12. In December, it was stayed. We think litigation's ongoing but there's a good likelihood that that rule is going to get back on the tracks. Right now, the Clean Air Interstate rule is, we are complying with it. It's back in force, but we think EPA is probably going to get the cross-state air pollution rule back on the track somehow in some form, and we see that continuing to move forward. Certainly, as we've discussed, the National Ambient Air Quality Standards being implemented, a new one for ozone. We expect to see a new standard coming out for fine particulate latter part of this year, but the standards are becoming more increasingly stringent. Let me go back. The one I wanted to talk to a little bit, that the utility MACT, or that's Maximum Achievable Control Technology, or it's also called right now, as EPA put it out, the Mercury and Air Toxic Rules. That really is a major rulemaking that came out in December, was released out on December 1st. It will, 21st, excuse me. We'll have to start complying with that in April 2015, and it is a very stringent rule, and it sets specific limits for hazardous air pollutants at each and every source. So there's not system averaging, there's not other things. It's a major rulemaking that a lot of folks, a lot of utilities will be putting their clean air capital very closely to make sure that the fleet can maintain standards with this stringent rule. Timing's tight. April 2015 comes around pretty quick, and there is an available extra year if you are installing control equipment or other replacement generation and transmission upgrades. But that's a major rulemaking we're focused on. When you look at where we've come and where we're going, and some of that, you can see emissions of SO2 from the 70s is way down. 2011, we're getting pretty low down there, around 200,000 tons of emissions, and basically in SO2 and NOx, 90% reductions off of highs. Our NOx reduction certainly began in the mid-90s, and we've had steady systematic reductions in 2009, making some major reductions, and now we've certainly lowered that. And as you can see, the cost for that has continued to rise, and I think some of the points of this one is that a lot of the cost-effective reductions have taken place. Further progress will demand a lot of capital expense, and we'll get into some of that. I thought I would, since we're over in western North Carolina, I thought I would just kind of look at the fleet of plants that we've got on the eastern side of our system, and kind of just tell you a snap. Instead of going through the whole laundry list, I'd give you a little snapshot. The bottom line you can see on both annual NOx and ozone season NOx, that we're down, that's a pretty well-controlled fleet. We've got John Sevier plant that's up Rogersville, Tennessee. That plant, we are building a combined cycle gas turbine right next to it, and we've announced a retirement on that plant. Our Bull Run and Kingston plants are equipped with state-of-the-art selective catalytic reduction systems that reduce SO2 on that. We are under construction with Watts Bar Unit 2, which will be over 1,000 megawatts of base-loaded clean generation. And then at Widows Creek, we have 7 units down there. 8 units down there. 6 of them have announced retirements, and we've got a retirement schedule for them. And our Widows Creek 7 and 8 units are controlled with modern selective catalytic reduction systems. So you can see this is our actual emissions down through here, and we will get, and then these are forecasted emissions. So we're pretty well, pretty low emissions coming out of East Tennessee. As we move now to back up, that's kind of where we've been, where we're going, but I thought I'd tell you a little bit more about some of how the direction that we're headed. Over the last couple of years, we've done an integrated resource plan, and this is really looking at a long 20-year time frame of what should be the shape of our generation fleet out over time. What do we want to do? So we looked at a lot of different scenarios. We looked at, some of the big question marks that you have is what's going to be future demand? How much electricity out in the future is going to serve the valley's needs? So we looked at situations where the economy has robust growth and demand continues to grow. We've looked at situations where demand stays relatively modest. We looked at high gas prices and fuel prices, low gas prices. We looked at a lot of different things, and we had broad stakeholder engagement on this. And if you really, the bottom line of all this plan, if you read it, was that a balanced resources really looked for a balanced mix of generating assets made sense. And so when you see kind of some of that is that in most cases, of these many cases, that the nuclear fleet certainly made sense. Increased pull some of the coal capacity, some of our units did not merit further investment in clean air controls, and so that's why we've made some announcements. We're looking that natural gas as an intermediate supply source would be there. So more of the combined cycle natural gas-fired sources certainly would be coming in, but that certainly energy efficiency and demand response needed to be a central tenet of any system planning. And then renewable energy, certainly it has a place and a role to move, and I'll show you where we're doing on that. And that certainly, as we look at how our system is configured, where if you think about the power grid, and you make the analogy to a circus tent, you've got poles that are supplying the tent, and you got the tent up. Well, if you shut this plant down, you still got to prop up the net somehow. So as we look at a lot of the systems with a lot of retirements and a lot of the change in demand that we're seeing on our system that demand's a little peakier, that the highs are a little higher and the lows are a little lower. So in a day's time, we can have really high demand and really low demand in any one time. So to manage a lot of that, pumped hydro storage capacity really showed its value. Now, whether we'll make the investment in that, that's to be seen, but those types of systems of pump storage really showed some benefits to our transmission fleet. So as we think about energy and we think about our system, we've tended to call this the green pea slide. But you can see that this is the total, if you think about it, this is in energy. This is in megawatt hours or gigawatt hours. This is the total amount of energy that we provide for the valley. We see the dotted line that's kind of the but for energy efficiency, we would have had to even been bigger, but we're shrinking that through energy efficiency. So we're trying to get that dotted line, the blue side, we're trying to add to that energy efficiency. This is, in fact, the green is basically coal-fired power, if you think about that, in our clean energy defined, and that's where we're really looking that it's low-carbon sources. So it's nuclear, it's hydro, it's renewable, we have that here. And then certainly as we look down here in renewables where we talk our hydroelectric capacity plus wind, solar, and other renewables fit in this chunk. So we are, as we're moving, the blue's going to be reduced and the clean energy is going to move forward. Excuse me, let me back up just a little bit. So how does that translate to a look at the fleet across the valley? And I won't go through all these, but it'll show generally the trend. We have made some announcements. We've announced that John Sevier will be retired, and we're building a gas combined cycle right there, and I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. And again, we talked about Watts Bar that's currently under construction. We've announced that we're going to continue. We've got scrubbers and SCRs on Bull Run in Kingston, in Cumberland, and Paradise. So we're continuing to keep those plants in the fleet. We've announced retirement of Johnsonville, parts of Widows Creek, and we're continuing to study a couple of plants, Shawnee and Colbert. Those are under review, and we've not made an announcement on that. So we have kind of looked at those fleets, and certainly it is a greener system with lower air emissions, lower CO2 emissions. Part of what we've added is natural gas combustion turbines, and these are certainly, we're building the one in Upper East Tennessee, and then we've got some Mississippi, and then West Tennessee and Lagoon Creek. I don't know if anybody's been watching the price of natural gas lately, but it has been hitting rock bottom. $2 and something a million BTUs. That is an incredibly low price for energy. It's been causing some unusual things on the utility side. You'll see coal plants that would generally dispatch that are being idled while gas plants are coming online. And so that compendium curve of what comes up to meet load, natural gas has certainly jumped in there, and that's not just on the TVA system, that's across the region. So we are certainly right now using a little more natural gas than we had previously planned, but we're burning a lot less coal than we had planned. Here this is now show and tell. This is the John Sevier site in Upper East Tennessee near Rogersville, Tennessee. This is the coal-fired plant right here. That's 4 units, basically at 800 megawatt coal-fired plant. We're replacing it with an 880 megawatt combined cycle gas plant. And what you see out here are the combustion turbines, 3 combustion turbines. And you can think of those as giant aircraft engines hooked up to a generator. And then we have steam recovery off of that, so the hot air comes off of that. We make steam out of it, and it comes over to fires a steam turbine. It makes for a very efficient use of capture of energy. So that's our plant cooling towers right here. And then this unit is slated for retirement by the end of this year. December 2012, it'll be retired, mothballed. So we got some progress there. So it's about this is a major investment, about a little over an $800 million investment. Certainly, as we started looking at renewable energy, we have a lot of hydroelectric. We were one of the first to put wind power in the southeast with our Buffalo Mountain stations up on the Cumberland Plateau there outside of Oak Ridge. We've added to that with some power purchase agreements to bring wind out of the Midwest. We've purchased a large quantity of wind coming out of the Midwest, and we're investing heavily in solar through our generation partners and our standard offer that we have out there that's available to be seen on our website. And then we do some biomass. As we start looking at what the capacities are, we look at the resources of what we've committed to, and we're certainly moving forward in the IRP of filling out that renewable energy space, a variety of programs moving forward. I thought I would show one that kind of highlights some of what we're doing with solar installations, and you see that Western North Carolina is very much represented. This is our power service region of our areas, of our partner and distributors in Western North Carolina that have been participating in the program. You'll see the green are the sites that are installed, and you see a backlog of some installations that have been approved but are on the boards to be constructed. So we are seeing more solar penetrations. We have some large solar farms that are coming in, but these are more residential, commercial, smaller solar arrays that are part of our program to get folks involved in developing a little bit of diverse energy, distributed energy. On our energy efficiency program, we've got it targeted basically in three major buckets. Our residential home efficiency, commercial energy efficiency, think about strip centers, think about Burger Kings, McDonald's, those folks, and then think about large industrials. And we've got programs in all of those sectors. It is achieving, we're putting the infrastructure in, we're paying for we're helping partner and pay for some of the efficiency programs, and now it's starting to get the benefit, both in energy efficiency and in demand response. We're getting, shaving off those peaks a little bit that are certainly helping us on the load, and we look at a robust program moving forward. We are continuing to do air monitoring in the park. We certainly work with a lot of folks, EPA, EPRI, state programs. We're continuing to look at that. We're glad to see some of the reports coming out that I previously mentioned that talked about reductions in air emissions and impacts from air emissions in the sensitive part of the park and upper mountain regions. This was a slide somebody said, well, your slides are a little boring. They're pretty detailed. Show them that it's making a difference. And I went, well, let's get a visibility slide up here. So if you couldn't see it through the charts, you just start seeing that as we measure visibility, you can start seeing the difference as we reduce, certainly as we reduce SO2 and other and particulate matter and things that deflect light. Certainly visible emissions, visible array is certainly looking better, and we're seeing clean air is a little more tangible to us. So in summary, I do think it's great to be here to basically celebrate some of the achievements that have been made. There's been a lot of hard work by this campaign. There's been a lot of hard work done by a lot of folks in the utility industry, not only TVA, but other utilities around the region. So we're glad to be part of it. We're glad to see the participation that you have in many source sectors. And I think the pace of the improvement will need to continue. If you look at the level that they are going to set national ambient air quality standards at, they're going to set some strict standards. So tougher requirements are coming, and the pace of improvements certainly, we hope, keep up with the pace of the reductions that they're setting. So as we see air emissions coming down, the new targets are going to be set pretty low. So keep the initiatives coming and keep clean air coming.
All right, to discuss state air quality issues, up next we have Paul Muller. He's a regional supervisor of the Division of Air Quality, Asheville Regional Office, and has been involved in our clean air campaign for the last 12 or 13 years and has been very supportive. And Paul, thanks for being here.
You bet. Well, since we're here for the kickoff event at the beginning of the ozone season, I'd like to mention we monitor ozone from April 1st through the end of October, but the forecasting is done through April till the end of September. So I'm going to start talking about that. Ozone forecasts are issued every day at 3 o'clock. The first one is tomorrow. Okay, the season starts on April 1st, but we'll begin the forecasting tomorrow. It comes out at 3 o'clock. Now, we do issue forecasting for fine particles, PM-2.5, year-round. And if you want to get forecasts, I'll give you some clues on how to pick it up pretty soon. For ozone, we issue forecasts for both ridge tops and valleys. So when if you're going to be hiking on Mount Mitchell, be sure to check the ridge top. If you're just concerned about where you live in a valley, that will give you the best clue on that one. Okay? And when we do this, we will issue a forecast for each site, but sometimes you also get it for over the whole mix. And if you do that, you always get whichever the forecast is worse. So if it's PM2.5 is yellow and ozone is green, and you only hear one forecast, it will be for whichever one is not as good. But if you go to our website, and I'll show you how to do that in a second, you can find out the details for each one. And in giving out that forecast and the numbers, we use the code issued by EPA for the air quality index. Green is good, yellow is medium. When we get to orange, we're getting into unhealthy for sensitive people. And we have not had a red here in a long time, and we hope that continues. So we then tie our ambient air quality standard to that code. So, and that standard, as you just heard from Mr. Myers, is 75 parts per billion. Oops, I'm hitting the wrong one. I'm trying to hit the laser. And so it's right here. We use the standard as the transition point from yellow to orange. So if you hear that it's green, it doesn't just mean it's below the standard, it's well below the standard. Anything below 60, if that's the forecast for a site, will result in a green code. If we expect it to be between that and up through 75, it'll be yellow, and it's only when it gets over the ambient air quality standard set by EPA that it goes to 76. All right? So with PM2.5, we also have an ambient air quality standard, but in PM2.5 we have an annual average and we have a 24-hour standard. So we use our 24-hour standard, which is 35 micrograms per cubic meter. You have to love the units we use, right? Parts per billion, micrograms per cubic meter. But that is how we measure the mass. And once again, there is our transition point from yellow to orange. That's a rounding convention that we use, 0.4 to 0.5. That's where it switches. So if it's green, it means we're below our annual standard, which is 15.4. Then as we go from there to our daily standard, you're in the yellow zone, etc. So they both work similarly based on that color code that we get from EPA. So now that you're excited about how to get that forecast every day, one place to get it that probably provides the most information is to go to our website, ncair.org. That's the easiest way to get there. Okay? And all across the bottom of the home page, of course there's lots of other fun stuff to read, but if you come across and click on ozone forecasts, it'll take you to this page. And actually you're now looking at the top half of that page, but you can now see different areas across the state where we do forecasting. Now our ridgetop forecast will be right here in those mountains. The valley forecast is indicated here in the mountain counties. All right? Now, right now, the mountains look gray because I just took this shot off the internet a couple days ago. We're not doing ozone yet. We can't do PM2.5 at the high elevations because it's real hard to get to Mount Mitchell in January. And we have to do the forecasting for that year-round. Ozone, on the other side, is a summertime pollutant. That's why we monitor from the beginning of April through the end of October. It depends on radiation from the sun, that radiant energy to drive reactions in the atmosphere to form the ozone. And they're not sufficient in the wintertime. So ozone is a summer pollutant. And one way, also, while we're on this slide, though, I want to touch on is right here. You click on that, and you can sign up to receive an email every day around 3:30 that will tell you what the forecast is for tomorrow. You just click on that, go in and fill in your information. Obviously, they want your email address, and you will get them for free. We don't even charge for the forecast. It's such a good deal. Okay. And at the bottom of this page, then, once you have seen where the different areas are that receive the forecast, this is what you'll see. All the different areas are listed. So we have our ridgetops. It says forecast unavailable. We didn't have it for that point in time. We do occasionally issue what we call generic ozone forecasts outside the ozone season. And that's just an opportunity if for any reason the meteorologists believe could be a problem for whatever reason, they will do that. But if you come to our webpage, that's where you get the most information. But starting tomorrow, right here under Ozone AQI, you'll see another row of numbers that are tied to that air quality index for ozone, just like we currently have for PM2.5. And this one may be causing an orange over here, whereas this one would still be green. So as you look at them, remember, whichever one is worse is going to control the overall code. Any questions on that, by the way? Okay, you can also, in addition to going to our trusty website, ncr.org, you can call this free toll number. They will give you the forecasting. You can go to the EPA website, and you can there receive forecasts from across the nation. That's kind of fun to do. If you want our forecast, when you get to the map, you can click on North Carolina and you can get to our area. But if you're traveling tomorrow and you're going to go up to Virginia or Pennsylvania or anywhere else, you can go there and pull the forecast for those areas as well, which is a really good deal. And it's also, of course, on LOS, it's on the Weather Channel, it's in much of the media, it's in the newspaper as well. Okay, so that's how we transmit the forecast, that's how we give out information. But if you're going hiking today and you would like to see what's the latest available data, we offer what we call real-time data. It's always going to be 2 to 3 hours behind because it takes us that long to take the data from the site where it's recorded, send it through the phone lines, put it in our computer, pop it up on our website. But we do provide that. So if you go to our website, when you come on though, you go to this wonderful place here called Monitoring Data, and it offers current by site or by monitor. Each one will allow you to access information for the area that you are interested in. So if you click on by site, if you come here, you then see the map of the state. And just want to point out, of course, Buncombe County there is a different color because there are 3 local programs, and Ashley's going to speak a bit about Buncombe County. But if you click in this area right here, it will then take you to the monitoring sites that we have in the mountains. And if you look at the different color codes, you will see some are for ozone, some are for PM, some are both. And we also offer some meteorological data at sites where we have a MET station. So just to give you an example, you can take your pick and click on whichever one you want to, but I'm going to click on Bryson City. And if I go to that site, this is what I receive. Now, once again, I did this a couple days ago, so the ozone data is not up there yet. It will be up. Some sites don't have ozone, some sites don't have PM2.5. You can always tell by that color code though, what type of information you will receive. But at Bryson, we have both. So here it's showing our PM2.5 concentrations across here. And if you're interested, you can get all this fun MET data along with it. So that's how you can get real-time data for a various site. I was on here about 9:30. I'm seeing data between 7 and 8. So we're always in a time lag because we can't give it to you instantaneously yet. There's been discussion about how we might be able to do that someday. But it still will give you a better idea of how the air is right now for an area, or relatively now, for an area you want to go see. So if you have any questions about that, you can let me know. I'll ask you more later. But I know you're all dying to see the data from all the monitoring we do. So this is the area where we do monitoring. Those are also the counties that we officially do the forecast for. If I'm going to Macon County, though, I would think a forecast for Jackson County would be pretty good. But technically, this is our sites we look at. And you will notice we have some that are triangles. Those are our high elevation sites. Our valley sites are indicated by circles. Now, Bent Creek is one that is operated by the local program, and Ashley will talk more about it later as well. But here we go. The way we have to do everything in air quality is complicated, so that's part of the rules that we have. So when we say our standard is 75 parts per billion, what it means is that each monitor we have, at the end of the year, we stack the data from highest to lowest. We go down to the 4th highest, and we take that number. So we do that for 2009, we do it for 2010, we do it for 2011. We average those 3 numbers together, and that's the number that has to be 75 or lower to show attainment with the national standard. So I hope you found that interesting because that is how it works. So I'm showing here a comparison between our ridgetop sites and our valley sites, and all of them are complying. We are well in attainment with that current standard of 75. As John mentioned, we are looking, though, at EPA changing this. They originally were looking at changing it to a range between 60 and 70. Well, if they made it 60, we're in trouble. But at 70, we would have only had one over 70, and that's Joanna Bald. We'll see where they go in the future. We're currently, though, are improving at these sites. But as you can see, we're especially doing well on the valley side because they're all below 70. And if you would like to see how we have achieved that over the years, it's fun to go back over time. Now, we're looking at the beginning here, a 3-year average from 98 to 2000. And that average, we had several sites well over 90 parts per billion. This yellow line is indicating averaging across all of our sites for the regional average is what I call it. And at that time, it was 87. But if we come over and look at where are we now, 2009 through 2011, our regional average has gone from 87 to 67. That's pretty good. That's improvement for us. I mean, I'd sure hate to see that line sloping the other direction. So we are improving. We're continuing to see that. And one of the good things about it is last year was a pretty hot summer. It was pretty dry. But we still continued to do pretty well. And for me, ozone is affected by the weather. Cool, wet summers, we always have lower ozone than if it's a hot, dry one. But if we can keep those concentrations down, even in hot, dry summers, that shows that we are reducing NOx emissions. I mentioned ozone is formed in the atmosphere. What we are focusing on to reduce ozone is the emissions of nitrogen oxides, because that's the key to forming ozone in those reactions. Okay, so next I thought I'd mention fine particles as well. Because we have to achieve an ambient air quality standard as well there. One difference I will mention, though, is that there are clear links between fine particles and mortality, the death rate. There are studies now being done to look at that with respect to ozone, but I have not heard of anything conclusive coming out of that yet. But our annual average is 15 micrograms per cubic meter. And one of his slides, Mr. Meyer showed that they're looking at a new range. It's probably going to be 10 or 12. Well, fortunately, our numbers are down. We're well in attainment, I should say, with the 15 standard, but we have Waynesville at 10 and everything else is in the 9s. That's how we're doing. So we like to see the progress there, and that is the progress we have achieved over the years. When we start in that far left side, we're looking at 99 through 01. 99 is the year we began monitoring for PM-2.5. And we came down pretty well. Some of this was due to some of the rules in place, like the acid rain provisions. We kind of leveled off, but along comes things like the Clean Smokestacks Act, other federal rules as well that required reductions. So now we have gone, when you look at our regional average back here, we're almost at 15. Our regional average now is less than 10. So that's improvement too. We like to see that. And once again, you know, we have a nice slope going here. We hope that one kind of continues, but it gets more difficult as you get lower here to keep it declining. Okay, you heard most of this already, so I'm going to go through it pretty quickly because I did want to mention some of these rules. Now I am going to give a little time to one aspect of interesting federal-state interaction. You heard about the Cross-State Air Pollution Rule. CSAPR, as some people call it, one of the better acronyms we have these days. But we will benefit from that when it comes into place. It'll affect mostly the eastern U.S. The Utility Boiler Act, you mentioned that as well. We're going to see reductions in mercury and other hazardous air pollutants, which is what HAP stands for. There's also, though, on Tuesday was issued the Utility Greenhouse Gas Proposal. And it ties the emissions of greenhouse gases at utilities in the future. It's only for plants that have not yet applied for permits, but it ties it, gives a limit for coal, a limit that coal will have a very hard time achieving. That's what it does. It gives a limit per megawatt generated, and I'll touch on that just a little more to give you a little more idea about it. But I also wanted to mention the Industrial Boiler Act, because this is, if you like confusion in rules, which we have a lot of, this really is a good one to check out. Affects industry boilers. We have 98 facilities in the state and over 1,000 boilers that are affected. And when EPA started this, they issued those rules under what we call the 112D section of the Clean Air Act. And when we get there, though, they did not have it in place in time so that it was officially in place because of a vacature, et cetera. And the rule says, okay, then the states have to step in and tell you what to do. So if the federal government doesn't take care of it in time, the states are responsible. And we do that under the wonderful 112J part of it. So we can issue in a permit limits when the federal government has not put their rule in place. We can put a rule in place, and it can last for up to 8 years. So it's by facility. We issue the MACT, Maximum Achievable Control Technology, based on information we have for the hazardous air pollutants. We do it through a permitting action, and we do it because the US EPA had failed to promulgate their MACT and keep it in place on time. So right now, EPA is getting their MACT back in place, but for virtually all of the industrial boilers in North Carolina, they won't have to comply until 2018 to 19. After May 22nd, 2019, we stopped doing that because the rule was no longer in place to fix the rule because EPA had not put out theirs in time. So it's one of those places where now we have a state rule replacing a federal rule temporarily, and then it will go back to being a federal rule. So in case you're wondering how complicated doing regulatory work can get, that's a pretty good one. And just want to mention, we also do it for smaller boilers, and instead of MACT, Maximum Achievable, it becomes GACT, Generally Available. When that first came out, it caused a lot of controversy. Everybody thought it was pretty difficult to do. But really what it ended up being for small boilers, tune-up every 2 years. That's a great idea. They ought to do that anyhow. It also, for existing boilers, unless you're burning coal, your requirement is a boiler tune-up and a one-time energy assessment. So that's where we landed. I think that was an improvement in that rule. It's still tough if you're burning coal, but otherwise tune-ups is basically what they're trying to focus on, because it would be very expensive for small boilers to install controls. It would be far more expensive than the benefit. So that's one I appreciate. And just to touch on as well in the greenhouse gas, one of the main areas we're focusing on is gathering inventories. How many tons of greenhouse gases are going up in the air? These are the ones we look at. This is if you're doing an inventory, these are the gases we look at. Now, they're not equal in terms of their intensity. Methane is more than 20 times as intense as carbon dioxide in terms of climate change impacts. But we gather all of those, and you can go to that website if you'd like to see inventories, by the way. But they finally came to the point, pardon me, of setting a limit for the utility boilers. It was proposed on Tuesday. It'll probably end up in court like everything else does. But you can see that the limit is 1,000 pounds of CO2 per megawatt. Well, that's how many pounds of CO2 are generated by a coal boiler. That's how many are generated by a natural gas boiler. Very interesting, the limit is right between them. I can't believe that that was just accidental. I think it's helping to push a shift from coal to natural gas. But you should really ask the people who wrote it because they could give you a much better answer. But it's a big deal because it's the first proposed limit on emissions of greenhouse gases that we've really had. So I'll let you go with all that. And here's information, though. Once again, our website, we have a lot of information there. And you can access the email and phone number for everybody who works for DAQ at that site. But I'll just go ahead and give you mine. If you ever wanted to email me or call me, that's it. Thank you much.
Okay, I'd like to introduce Ashley Featherstone. Ashley is the engineering supervisor with the Western North Carolina Regional Air Quality Agency, and she's going to tell us about air quality and activities here in Buncombe County. Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for being here for our Ozone Kickoff event. My presentation is for the local agency, so it focuses mainly on local issues and Buncombe County air quality. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the same things you've heard about and see our data here locally and some of the initiatives that we're doing here at the local agency. Here in North Carolina, air quality is regulated by the State Division of Air Quality through their 7 regional offices. They regulate the 97 counties, and then there are actually 3 local programs that regulate the other 3 counties in North Carolina. So our programs are approved by the Environmental Management Commission. We do most of the same type work that the Division of Air Quality does, and that includes enforcing the regulations, permitting of all the sources that require permitting. We do inspections and compliance. We also regulate asbestos removal, which the 3 locals do and the state does out of Raleigh, and we regulate open burning. We do operate air pollution monitors, like the ones we've been talking about, and we do some education and outreach type activities as well. So here in western North Carolina, we do have some unique challenges with air quality in the mountains because of our topography. Sometimes we have the mountain valley type inversions where air pollution can get trapped down in the valleys, and any type of locally generated air pollution can be an issue there. Over the years, we've heard a lot from different folks. We do have about air pollution blowing into the area from other states, and while that does occur, some studies have shown that our worst air quality days are actually when we're experiencing these stagnant air conditions, and that is mostly locally generated pollution. So I'd like to point out that while we do get contributions of pollution from other areas, we are responsible for a lot of our own pollution problems as well. So it's really important that we all do the best we can in our local area here. So with regards to ozone, as you've heard, NOx emissions and volatile organic compound emissions do contribute to the formation of ozone when there is the presence of heat and sunlight, which is why it's a summertime pollutant. But here in the southeast, we have a lot of VOCs that are generated from natural sources like trees. So what we do is try to focus on the NOx emissions, and our control strategies for reducing ozone focus on NOx. Biggest sources of NOx here locally are cars and trucks by far, the Progress Energy Skyland plant, and other industrial boilers and sources that, like Paul was talking about earlier. But Progress Energy has put on a lot of controls here at the Skyland plant in Asheville, and as a result, the cars and trucks are really our biggest sources of air pollution for NOx. And as Paul was saying earlier, the weather does influence ozone. We've seen that the hotter, drier summers usually result in more ozone compared to the cooler, wetter summers. But as he pointed out, and we're going to show you with our data, the good news is even in recent years we've had so much pollution reductions that when we have had some hot, dry summers, the levels haven't been too bad as they had been in previous years. So that's very encouraging for us. And I'll go through this quickly because you've heard about this, but our standard, of course, for ozone, it's a national health-based standard, is designed to protect the public health, is 75 parts per billion. And right now at the Buncombe County monitors in Bent Creek, that most of the data that I'm going to show you comes from, we are right around that 67 parts per billion. That's our design value, that 3-year average of the 4th highest level that Paul explained earlier. We are concerned, of course, about our upper elevation monitors because we do have folks going and living up in the upper elevations as well. And when EPA does designations for ozone, they look sometimes at they either look at the county level or sometimes they look at the whole metropolitan statistical area. So even though we're mainly concerned at our local agency, our big focus is Buncombe County, we are concerned about these upper elevation monitors like the ones Paul was telling you about in Haywood and Yancey and surrounding counties, because that could influence whether or not we are considered to be an attainment area, depending on how EPA makes their decisions on that. So again, as it was mentioned earlier, EPA is looking to change the standard from 75. It's possible they could lower it in 2013 down in the range of 60 to 70. So we're pretty borderline at that level, with a level of 70. So here's our design value, and this is all the Bent Creek monitor data. You can see that it's come down quite a bit over the years. This was our old standard. This is the 2008 standard of 75. So we are well below that, but again, the levels that we have to meet continue to drop as they continue to find more health effects at lower levels. So there's lots more work to be done. And also want to talk briefly about fine particles, because that's the other big pollutant that we're concerned about here in Western North Carolina, another one that we do monitor for. The fine particles can cause a lot of health effects. They've been linked to heart and lung diseases. And also the regional haze that we've talked about, and I really appreciate the slide that John had showing the views of the mountains. This regional haze is very closely related to these fine particles as well, and that can affect us here, especially since we have such a focus on tourism and people want to be able to come to the mountains and see the mountains. So fine particles, again, are very much a concern for us here. This is our annual average fine particle data at the monitor here in Buncombe County. So you can see the standard is 15 micrograms per cubic meter, and we're down here in the range of about 9. So we're doing well, but again, as was mentioned earlier, EPA is continuing to lower these standards, so it will continue to be a challenge for us to meet those. And this is with regards to our air quality index that Paul talked about. As he stated, that does include fine particles and ozone. So this is just some data that shows over the years how often this is not the forecast data, this is the actual levels that were measured at the monitors put into that air quality index. So that you can see in 2011, out of 364 days that we had data for, 310 we were in the good range and 54 we were in the yellow range. And that's pretty consistent that air quality is good most of the time, but of course we're concerned about the moderate and the unhealthy days. EPA has a really good website that Paul has in his presentation. It's called Air Now, and you can actually go in and look at different counties and cities and compare the air quality index levels, and that's been really helpful for us. We get a lot of calls from people that say, I'm moving to the area and I want to know about the air quality, so they can go in and put in their city and other cities that they're interested in and see the differences in the monitored values. So now I'd like to tell you just a little bit about some things that we've got going on at the local agency briefly here. EPA has what they call an urban air toxic strategy, where they're looking at the small sources of air pollution that do emit toxic air pollution. And what they've done is they've come up with some regulations. They're called generally available control technologies, and they do apply to these types of businesses. We've been doing outreach with these. These rules actually apply to gas stations, auto body shops, plating and polishing operations, some of the metal fabricators, and also, as Paul mentioned earlier, just lots of different companies have small boilers. These are going to be affected by these rules. So we've been doing a lot of outreach with the community, with the different businesses that might be subject to these rules, and that's been a big focus of ours these last couple of years, and of course it's very time consuming. And I'd like to switch gears and just tell you real briefly about a couple of our voluntary pollution prevention type initiatives. This is one that we did in partnership with the North Carolina Division of Air Quality, who provided these signs. We managed to get these put up at most of the public schools in the city of Asheville and Buncombe County. And what we're trying to do is promote idle reduction and try to encourage parents not to idle their vehicles when they're in school parking areas. So everyone, I think, knows what idling is, and you do produce a significant amount of pollution around your car when you are idling, and this kind of pollution has been linked to exacerbation of allergies and asthma, children's lung development, and also heart and lung disease. So we're really trying to encourage folks to think about the signs and try not to idle if possible. Division of Air Quality's come out with some good promotional materials that we're hoping to get out into the schools to try to promote this program more. But what they found in the recent data shows that idling for just 30 seconds wastes more fuel than restarting the engine. So, you know, if you're at the drive-through or someplace where you're going to be idling, please keep that in mind. And also, they've also found that idling can actually damage your engine, because when you're idling, you're not getting as much complete fuel combustion as when you're driving, and it results in the buildup of fuel residues on the parts. So it's not great for your vehicle either. And of course, the more gas you burn, the more money you're spending. So trying to cut down on the idling will save money at the pump. So another initiative that we've been working on is heating with wood. There are a lot of people in Western North Carolina that do heat with wood, and fortunately, back from 2009 through 2011, there were some good tax credits that people could take advantage of if they wanted to swap out their old wood stove for a newer, cleaner burning wood stove that meets the EPA standards. So we found we could not find any funding for a wood stove change-out program at the time. So we decided to initiate a campaign and try to let people know at least about the tax credits, which were pretty significant during 2010. They were up around $600 or so, which was 30% of the installation of a new stove, and they dropped down to $300 after that. Unfortunately, we don't have those credits anymore, but we still try to get the word out to folks about the newer wood stoves. Not only are they cleaner, but they're safer. They produce less air pollution, but they also produce less of that creosote that builds up in the chimney and can lead to the dangerous chimney fires. So we do have some more information about that on our website if anybody's interested. We have a good demonstration video that shows an older, more polluting wood stove next to a cleaner EPA-certified wood stove, and it's just amazing the amount of smoke that the older stoves do put out. And EPA has found that most of the stoves out there are still the older, I think it's pre-1990 or so models. So again, I've already covered this. Diesel retrofits, we continue to try to participate in these projects when funding is available. The older diesel engines are very durable, and they're actually on the road a lot longer than our gasoline cars. A typical replacement cycle is about 20 years. So these diesel retrofits can really help because those older engines are going to be on the road for a long time. The 2007 and newer diesel engines are much cleaner, but again, those older engines are out on the road for a long time. So our last project was with fire engines that we retrofitted with diesel oxidation catalysts, and that was in the city of Asheville in Buncombe County. The different technologies that can be available in addition to the diesel oxidation catalysts are the particulate filters and the closed crankcase ventilation systems, among others. So Congress has appropriated funds for an EPA program to continue to give out money for these type projects. And right now, the North Carolina Division of Air Quality actually has an idle reduction devices. They have a rebate program for these auxiliary power units that can be installed on tractor trailers that have sleeper berths. And out on their website right now, they're still taking applications for those rebates. So trying to get the word out about that as well. And lastly, another one of our initiatives has focused on radon, and this is an indoor air pollution problem. This is a state map that just shows the radon levels, red being the highest, followed by orange, and then the lowest yellow. But you'll see that Buncombe County and some of the other mountain counties have some of the highest radon levels in the state. And radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer in the United States. So we've been giving out free radon test kits. We encourage everyone to test their home and remediate it if necessary. We've done that in partnership with the State Radon Program and the Buncombe County Cooperative Extension Service as well. So that's something we give out, the free test kits in January every year. And if you don't get a free kit, they are only $15, and the state program actually can sell them at cost for $5 if anybody's interested. And lastly, we always close with a slide about what we can all do as individuals to try to reduce air pollution, and that focuses mainly on conserving energy, driving less or driving more efficiently, driving more efficient vehicles, and trying to participate in different programs like North Carolina Green Power to promote renewable energy, and of course, being aware and knowing the air quality forecast. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Questions for Ashley?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, just want to thank all our event sponsors and our presenters today. Special thanks to the media for helping us to inform the public and our community leaders. Media's been great to work with. Also want to thank Buncombe County TV for coming out again this year and taping this event, and I guess that'll be on their website probably in the next couple of weeks, and also on a DVD if anyone would like to use that. So with that, I just want to thank everyone for coming out today and to remember that working together, we can clear the air. So thank you all for coming.